Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Very warm welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University at Chaitanya Studio, Ahmedabad. I, Professor Amit Suthar from Department of Computer Science, Ganpati University, would like to share some knowledge regarding the web application tools. So today's session is basically the application inspection tools, likewise SQLMap and DVWA. For the today's agenda, learning objectives, introduction, application inspection tools like SQLMap as well as DVWA. So, after completion of this section, the learner is able to perform, identify different kinds of web vulnerabilities, usage of web app tools for inspection like SQLMap and DVWA. DVWA is nothing but damn vulnerable web application. So, inside this section, we will try to cover tools that assist with manual analysis of and interaction with web application. In this section, we care more about how the web application handles cookie values or how it responds to different values for a URL parameter or what kind of data it accepts from a form submission. So, basically, the security researcher or pen tester or learner in the security domain cannot directly attack or scan the vulnerable things of the specific website or web application. They must have a prior approved permission to perform such kind of task. So, how security researcher can get practice for find out the vulnerabilities? For that, the SQLMap as well as DVWA are supposed to provide such kind of platform to find out the vulnerabilities. Especially DVWA is specifically used for finding or getting some practice on it. So, this section will cover the tool which identifies the SQL injection, logic flows, XSS attack and many more. Also, it focused on manual analysis of web application as well as traffic analysis over the web. As we have discussed earlier in the previous section of this application inspection tools video tutorial. Now, I would like to introduce over here SQLMap. So, basically, whatever website or whatever web application stores its data inside the database, if they are using the dynamic web application or dynamic website, then they uses the SQL databases, either MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, or whatsoever. So SQLMap is an open source pen testing tool that automates, detects and exploit the SQL injection vulnerabilities. It is specifically for the SQL injection vulnerabilities. So basically SQLMap is pre-installed in Kali Linux and operated through command line. So Kali Linux is the operating system which is majorly used for the pen tester or security researcher or hacker also, because there are so many tools pre-installed, so it is widely used. In SQLMap, it finds and identified website that have vulnerable code. Now how can we get that vulnerable code, whether the website is vulnerable for the SQL injection or not? So let's see. There are several features of SQLMap. It supports for all non-database management system like Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, MS Access, Postgres, SQLite, Sybase. So basically it covers all the non-DBMS packages. It supports for all SQL injection techniques. It can be directly connect with database by providing credentials. But how can we get that credential? So there are several other features like it supports to discover users, passwords, databases, tables, columns, roles. That means all the sensitive information which is resides at database can be found through the SQLMap. It supports to crack the password using dictionary based attack, where you can use the brute force technique also. It can back up the whole or partial database, so attacker can get advantage of it. It can upload and download the file from DB server, database server, in specific database like MySQL, MS SQL, Postgres. So this is an example how SQLMap work. For example, there is one URL like http://www.website.com/example.php, and there is a question mark, ID is equal to 21. So here we are providing the ID as a parameter and 21 is its value, ID's value. So by providing such kind of URL into the web browser, you will get some output. So above listed URL is prone to SQL injection due to the lacking of escape the parameter ID. It is simply checked by trying to open the URL using below statement like http://web site.com/example.php !id is equal to 21. Then after 21, we are providing one single quote mark, and it gives an error or some response code will be there, and through that we are able to find whether the website is vulnerable for SQL injection or not. So by adding single quotation mark in the parameter, if it throws an error or behave unexpectedly, then it indicates that unexpected single quote not managed properly. So it specifies the ID parameter is vulnerable to SQL injection, and in the example.php page there will be ID. ID is the parameter, or we can say variable, which is vulnerable for the SQL injection, and through that we will perform the malicious things, or we can also perform SQL injection. So how to use SQLMap? So SQLMap is a basically utility or a program, Python program. Okay. So the SQLMap command is run using Python interpreter because it's a Python program. So for running this SQLMap, you must have Python inside your system if you would like to use the SQLMap. So here you can see how can we execute SQLMap. Python SQLMap.py-u, then URL -u is nothing but a URL. So here I have to provide the http:// whole URL with ID is equal to 21. So the output of above command will shows the operating system, database and web server with version information. And if such kind of information displays to the attacker, then he or she can find onto the net for such kind of vulnerabilities and perform some SQL injection attack. So how to use SQLMap? Let's see. Once you identify that URL is vulnerable for SQL injection and it's exploitable, the further steps to discover the database. Firstly, we have to use this command and also provide some parameters like DBS option, which is used to get the list of database available inside the database server. So here you can see the example Python SQLMap.py-u, which is used for the providing the URL. So here we have to provide the URL. Then at last we have to provide --dbs option, which is used to get the database list available inside my website.com. So it will retrieve the database, list of database. Among the several database, you are interested for a specific database. So after getting the list of database, you can find the list of tables reside in particular database. So database is nothing but a collection of various tables and views. So you are find or you are interested further for finding the tables. So the tables option is used to get the list of tables inside specified database using -d option. So as you can see in the screen, Python SQLMap.py -u, that is your URL, dash tables. So we are interested to find out the tables inside DB sample. DB sample is nothing but your database name, DB sample, and -d is the option for providing the database name. Now you have a database name, also you have a tables. So by executing this command you will get several tables. So after executing this command you will find the list of tables inside DB sample database. Now it's time to get columns, because we have a list of tables. After that you are very much interested for a columns which is available inside users table. Users is a one table inside DB sample database. So it can be fetched using -t option. So here you can see in the screen that Python SQLMap.py -u, that is your URL. Then after here we are getting some columns. So through the field name or through the columns we are getting some field name available in users table of DB sample database. So here you can see -columns -d DB sample -t users. So users is my table, -d is used for database, and we will get the entire field's name of users table. After that, if we have a column, then we can get the data. So finally get the data from table using --dump option. So here you can see the example for getting the data of DB sample database of specific table, that is in our case users table. So whatever rows will be available inside users table, you can get it from the --dump option. So this is the way where you can perform the SQL map. Then after, there is a DVWA application. Actually it's a DVWA, it's a PHP MySQL web application. So in Kali Linux it is by default installed, but if you wish to install it in your Windows environment or Linux environment, then you must have the PHP, pre-installed the PHP as well as MySQL. Then after you will be able to use this DVWA application. So it is nothing but a damn vulnerable web application. Its main goal are to be an aid for security professional to test their skills and tools in a legal environment because if we are directly approach to the specific website, then we are doing some illegal things if we don't have any kind of permission. So it is a legality issue. We are violating some legal matters. So I am not recommending such kind of activity. For practicing, we must have to install such kind of web application, DVWA. So security researcher or pen tester can get practice on it. So it helps web developers better understand the process of securing web application and aid teachers or students to teach or learn web application security in a classroom environment. So it's a very famous and very helpful application for performing the vulnerable web app. Now, before starting, it must be ensured that the testing of DVWA should be done on an isolated host with either VMware or VirtualBox, or separated by a host only connection. Otherwise, because it's already a vulnerable application, and if you are installing it directly onto your machine, then might be possible you will get compromised. So use such kind of virtual machine for the performing DVWA task. Non-vulnerability which DVWA contains as follows, like brute force. So HTTP form brute force login page used to test password brute force tools and show the insecurity of weak password. So brute force are there. Command execution is there. So it executes commands on the underlying operating system. Then after, CSRF attack can be also done through DVWA. So cross-site request forgery enables an attacker to change the application's admin password. File inclusion. So such kind of vulnerabilities can be done or can be practiced in this web app, that is DVWA. File inclusion allows an attacker to include remote or local files into the web application. SQL injection. Recently we have seen it in SQLMap. So SQL injection is also a very well-known vulnerabilities in website or web application. So you can get some advantage to practice on it through the DVWA. It enables an attacker to inject SQL statement into an HTTP form input box. So sometime improper validation in input box or text box inside the web application or website, at that time attacker can get advantage of it and compromise your system. So DVWA includes blind as well as error based SQL injection. So security researcher or pen tester can practice on it. Insecure file upload. So how the attacker allows to upload malicious files onto the web server. It is also available in DVWA. So if we don't have a proper permission, or we can say if there is file upload option, then might be possible attacker can upload use file or malicious file, or we can say unsupported format files. So through that, attacker will perform some malicious task onto the web server. So these all web vulnerabilities can be performed through the DVWA in legal manner. XSS attack. Again, I would like to say that many of the websites are infected with XSS attack, because while developing the website or web application, the developer not performing. If he or she is new by developer, then they are not performing some web input validation, or not able to perform some protected code while developing the website, and this can be reflect into the vulnerability things. So DVWA is also support for performing XSS attack. Inside XSS attack, it also include reflected as well as stored XSS. That means suppose I am entering some alert or script inside my input box. If it is not properly configured, then it can be directly executed the XSS script also. As well as suppose I am entering it into a stored procedure, then it also stored into my database also. So whenever actually it annoying the user by getting some unwanted alert, unwanted messages like that. So this is a one simple kind of example for performing the XSS attack. Easter eggs, full path disclosure, authentication bypass, and some other also. So such kind of vulnerabilities is also available in DVWA. So here you can see the page used for the DVWA. Username is admin and password is also admin for first time user. And through that, as we know that it is a web application, so it will be run onto the web browser, and by providing DVWA, by providing your IP address or host name, because it is a local application for practice the session. Okay, so directly you can execute into your browser and provide some local host or your IP name, then after DVWA is the directory name, then login.php. So you will get such kind of output, and inside this you must have to provide the admin privileges. So admin is the credential for entering the DVWA website. Then after, the first things that you have to do is change the DVWA security level, because if we are performing or we are a learner, then you must have to start from the low security, then after medium, then after if you have a expertise level, then provide the high security level. So firstly we have to change the DVWA security level at low and click on submit button. As you can see in the screen, the first one is the DVWA security. Second thing is select the low from the drop down box and click on submit button. So the entire environment or entire website will be act as like it is a low security, and you can perform as many attack on this application. So there are several attacks as we have seen: brute force, command execution, CSRF, file inclusion, SQL injection. Okay, so such kind of activities can be performed through the security researcher or students or teachers also. So this is a demonstration or usage of DVWA as well as SQL map. Thank you very much.